Hello and welcome back to Let's Play Final Fantasy 13. If you like what you're watching, be sure to give Stuckman a subscription. If you don't understand, that's a joke. But anyway, let's move on.
Hey. Hey, wake up! You gotta wake up! Look!
Hey, slow down!
Ready!
Gotta keep you kids safe, right?
And we get right into the action with yet another Pantheron fight. We've seen so many of these.
Glad that's over.
Man, I'm beat. What? No break?
They're tracking us.
I know that, but we aren't soldiers. We don't have your kind of stamina.
You got enough to complain.
Oh, that's... You, forget it!
I think,
I'd stick with her if I were you.
later then.
Come on, let's get going.
Get going to where, exactly? The whole of Cocoon's against us. No matter how far we run, there's no escape. That Seath clock, it's still a ticket.
There's still time. You give up too easy, old man.
I'm not giving up. There's some things that you just can't change. A kid like you would not understand.
Yeah, I'm a kid. I don't understand.
Well, I guess we can be fugitives together. Oh. You ready?
Ready!
Hey.
New merchandise available and data log updated. So this chapter is going to feature frequent party changes. So be ready. We have the events from the end of chapter 3. Mysterious woman. A mysterious woman captures Snow on Lake Brescia after his exhausting battle with Psycom and the twin sisters. She bears the mark of a lassie, but her brand appears scorched and twisted. As a servant of Pulse, she should be fleeing the Sanctum Army, but she seems to be working with one of the military's units. Alright. History and myth, we have Eidolons. These mystical entities reveal themselves before only a select few lassie. It is said that they are saviors, come to rescue hopeless lassie who find themselves bound to a focus against their will. If this is true, they offer a brand of salvation few indeed would seek willingly. Without exception, Eidolons attack the lassie whose presences they grace. There have been no lassie in Cocoon for centuries, and as a result, no way of determining the truth behind tales of these beings. For the citizens of Cocoon, they remain the stuff of bedtime stories. But we've seen that Snow does have an Eidolon now. Whatever that means. The Vile Peaks. The Vile Peaks are built of debris, the cast-offs of material originally lifted up from Pulse by the Foul Sea and used in the construction of Cocoon and later editions of Landmass. These towering piles of refuse now serve as lairs for all manner of beasts, including lower world mechanical horrors that, intentionally or not, hitched a ride with what became the building blocks of Cocoon. The Sanctum military endeavors to clear out the dangerous inhabitants of the peaks, but some say they leave the job half done to discourage civilians from entering the lowlands. Then we have the fal'Cie, Phoenix. Cocoon's own light in the sky, Phoenix is a Sanctum fal'Cie tasked with providing warmth and illumination. It floats at the center of Cocoon's inner atmosphere like a miniature sun, bathing the surrounding world in its radiant glow. It is the fal'Cie who are responsible for Cocoon's climate, regularly adjusting weather as deemed necessary. Just as Phoenix regulates daylight, other subordinate fal'Cie maintain patterns of wind and precipitation. So, we have 2 known Cocoon fal'Cie right now. These are the good guys, of course. And we have information on the Saboteur role for some reason. I'll read that I'll read that a little later, actually. Status ailments are going to be relevant soon enough. Eidolon battles we've seen in the previous chapter. And then Eidolons. These are the battle entries for Asteria and Nyx. Actually, the interesting thing is that we couldn't actually look at Asteria's information because Nyx was the only target, but there is some intel on Asteria. Asteria was the one who cast Kiraga on Snow and kept him alive. Now, as I said, the party changes frequently in Chapter 4, so I'm actually going to unequip things from Saz and Vanille, because despite how it may seem, we're not going to start with these people.
End of the road.
But at least it's not the end of the line.
I think a big one's coming.
Whoa, they didn't disappoint this year. Wow.
You look dreamy, Farron. Wishing on fireworks, were you? And you call yourself a soldier? Ah.
Sorry, Lieutenant. But I really don't think guard duty is my calling, sir.
Well, lucky for you, your shift just ended. Pack it up and go home.
But, sir...
SciComm found something in the vestige nearby. They don't want the Guardian Corps here stepping on their toes. I'm sure you heard about the accident at the Uriday Gorge energy plant, and how it has the SciComm lads in a tizzy.
Yeah. More incident than accident. Something pulse-related.
You're taking tomorrow off?
Sir, for my birthday, sir. My sister, she insisted on it.
21, huh? Maybe it's a good time to send off that letter of recommendation for officer training.
Lieutenant.
You're past due for a promotion, Farron. Think of your sister and your future, and keep your nose out of trouble.
Out of SciComm business, you mean?
Yeah. Nothing good'll come of it. Nothing but grief. Whoa! look at that one. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
How right you were, Lieutenant. Just you?
For now, I guess. Should we wait?
They'll catch up, eventually.
Hope has access to the Synergist rule. Synergists play a supporting role in combat, using their abilities to enhance and strengthen themselves and their allies. As a Synergist, Hope can learn abilities to improve the party's defensive capabilities. Currently, Hope can use the Protect spell, which raises the target's resistance to physical damage. As he develops in the role of Synergist, Hope will also be able to learn Shell, which boosts magic resistance. With both of these spells at his disposal, Hope will be able to help the party endure a wide variety of attacks. When he has gained adequate CP, open the main menu with triangle and select Crystarium to teach him Shell via Christogenesis. So, Hope is actually officially a member of our party for the first time ever. So that is the first Chapter 4 event. We have a new person entry for Amadar. Amadar is the lieutenant in the Bodum Security Regiment and was Lightning's direct superior. Climbing his way through the ranks with persistence and hard work, he is respected by his subordinates for his fair treatment on and off the field of battle. Nora's unregulated monster hunting falls under his jurisdiction, but aside from a few warnings for the sake of formality, he generally turns a blind eye to the group's earnest efforts. And that was... Oh, we also have information on Day 5. This was alluded to in that cutscene. Day 5, Uriday. There was an accident at the Uriday Gorge energy plant located near the seaside community of Bodum. Details of the accident were not released to the public, but the lack of information sparked widespread conjecture among the populace. Rumors began to circulate about an act of sabotage by Pulse Lassie, sending a whisper of panic through a society that has lived in terror of lower world invasion for centuries. And the actual cutscene was on Day 11. Warning. Assigned to security detail during the fireworks display in Bodum, Lightning was suddenly released from duty by her superior, Lieutenant Amadar. Psycom had found something in the nearby vestige. Lightning immediately thought of the accident that took place at the energy plant 6 days earlier. Voicing her concern, what is that, cocoon power? Voicing her concern that the incidents may be Pulse-related, Lightning's questions were deflected by the lieutenant, who advised her to avoid anything that involves the lower world. So this was taking place during the same time as the proposal, as well as the discovery of the vestige, which Amadar talked about. And we saw previously how the role Saboteur was revealed, but we also have information on role Synergist, and this actually expands more on what we just read. Synergists employ a wide range of abilities to enhance their allies' effectiveness in combat. Enhancements range from defensive bonuses to increased damage and the ability to deal elemental damage via normal attacks. When facing a particularly powerful enemy, it is a good idea to enter the battle using a paradigm that includes a Synergist. Once enhancements are in place, you can always shift to a different paradigm. Roll bonus, extended enhancements. Abilities grant longer lasting status enhancements. Allies share a reduced bonus. And we have seen that Hope starts off as a Synergist with a Protect Shell, which raises targets' physical resistance. And it also alluded to the fact that he can learn Shell, which is deep up here. This raises the target's magic resistance. So Hope is a defensive Synergist to begin with. He will learn some different augments as the game proceeds, but we can choose to have him cast some defensive spells if we so choose. Right now I don't want to choose, but we do have Hope in our party for the first time ever. Hope is notorious for being the party member with the least HP in 13, making people feel that he is a glass object, and in terms of being easily killed off in battle, but he's very powerful. He learns a variety of abilities that are very useful. He starts off with Fire and Blizzard as a Ravager, 2 different elements, and he can learn a third one quickly enough. The only other ability is in fact Shell, so I'll push towards that one. I generally prefer grabbing abilities over stats. And now Hope has learned every ability that is currently available. When in doubt with what to do in the Crystarium, a good idea is to try to max out everything before the upper stage, because those nodes are generally cheaper than the nodes on the current stage. But I can't actually do that here because I just ran out of CP. Lightning has some new possible abilities that she can pick up. As we've seen in the previous chapter, we have expanded the Crystarium. Snow's expansion was pretty boring, but Lightning's does have some extra things. Her Commando has a second tier of stats and abilities, and here we have Fault Siphon. Slightly charged ATB gauge upon attacking target afflicted with status ailments. We have not seen status ailments yet, but that will be relevant soon enough. I feel like I'm saying the word relevant too often. I do apologize. As a Ravager, she has two more abilities she can learn. She can learn Spark Strike, physically attack target for lightning damage, and Aqua Strike, physically attack target for water damage. Remember, this is physically attack as a Ravager, so Ravagers are capable of strength-based actions, just as much as Commandos Commandos can deal magic-based attacks. I don't have enough CP to be able to do anything with that, though. I could grab that magic node if I wanted to, but I don't want to. So with Hope and Lightning on our team, Lightning has 2 possible roles, Commando and Ravager. Hope has 3 possible roles, Ravager, Synergist, and Medic, which means that we could produce a grand total of 6 paradigms: Slash and Burn, Super Soldier, War and Peace, Dual Casting, Archmage, and Yin and Yang. In fact, this is the first time that we've been controlling 2 people with paradigms, and you'll see that 2-person paradigms have different names and different descriptions than the 3-person paradigms. Now, the most useful ones, again, we don't need the medics as much because we are still early off in the game. We can still throw potions to great effect, and we can still use Doctor's Code to basically maximize our potion gains. And so we don't really need those medics, so I'll just double up on Comrav and Rav paradigms to take advantage of ATB refreshing. I don't anticipate using Super Soldier or Archmage as much, even though they will show off the new Synergist role. It is still early enough in the game. I don't think we need the Protect or Shell aid. But if it does become a thing, we will incorporate it. If we lose a fight, we'll have to incorporate different strategies. I'm going to keep the powered wristband on Lightning, unless I prefer the Doctor's Code. Hope, instead of the Iron Bangle, I'm going to put the Silver Bangle on him. And you can see that without the Bangle, he would be at 320 HP, whereas Lightning is at 430, so he would be at about 70% of Lightning's HP. Here's a save point so we can check off the new merchandise available in the shops, and we can also check out B&W Outfitters, which we haven't seen yet. Also haven't read these shop descriptions, which don't really serve any purpose other than theme. Unicorn Mart. Reliable service from a name you can trust. At Unicorn Mart, your health is our business. Our expert pharmacists are standing by day and night to send you whatever you need, wherever you need it. We have Up in Arms. If history has taught us anything, it's that everyone dies eventually, but at Up in Arms, we help you to ensure your enemies do so as soon as possible. From classic pieces to cutting-edge upgrades, we've got it all. Edged weapons and up-in firearms gun selections, fully Sanctum approved. And B&W Outfitters. City life getting you down? Answer the call of the wild. With B&W gear to protect you, a trek through the lowlands is a walk in the park. Why not leave the hustle and bustle behind and return to nature? It could be just the vacation your soul needs. So Up in Arms, actually I guess it's Up in Arms that is due. B&W Outfitters we had previously. Up in Arms sells weapons. We have all the weapons here except for the Ninurta. But you can see weapons are a bit expensive. These ones are worth thousands of gil. We can afford all of them except for the bottom two. So we can't really get the Ninurta yet, unless we choose to sell things over here. We do have a credit ship. It says can be sold for a premium. Anything that says can be sold for a premium can safely be sold. Anything else you have to be careful with. Transformational catalysts you generally want to be careful with, except for Millerite, because Millerite is a very useless catalyst. So I will sell the Millerite. The remainder, it's a bit debatable now as to whether it should be sold or not, but let me take that back. You don't want to sell the organic components right now. The mechanical ones, it's debatable whether you should sell or not, but in any case, we still don't know what these are used for outside of selling, so I'm not going to really discuss selling them or not just yet. Now you notice that we have more weapons than Up in Arms sells. Like, we have the Gladius, which we picked up in Chapter 2, but the Gladius is not available in this shop. Maybe it's available from a different shop that we'll see someday, or maybe it will be added to Up in Arms later. Who knows? B&W Outfitters adds several things. We can purchase silver bangles for the first time ever. So we got 2 previously. I believe they were both boss drops, but I don't recall. We also have 2 new accessories here. We have the black belt, which increases physical resistance by 10%, and the rune bracelet, which increases magic resistance by 10%. These are really expensive, however. They are 4,500 gil each. And you might wonder why physical and magic resistance is super valuable. And the answer has more to do with the fact that there is no defense or magic defense stats in 13. The only way to reduce damage is either through a sentinel roll, which we haven't fully discussed yet, or equipping these accessories, which increase your resistance to the corresponding attacks. Don't underestimate the value of these accessories. Currently 10% isn't that much of a value, but a 10% increase in resistance means that you take 90% damage to the corresponding attack, which means that you're basically gaining 11% HP for the corresponding attack, which is a bit more powerful than a bangle, which gives a hard HP increase as opposed to a percentage increase, which makes these accessories more valuable when you have more HP. An iron bangle is only valuable when 50 HP is a significant number, so it matters more when you have 200 HP than it does when you have 20,000 HP, but a black belt will always retain its current effectiveness. Anyway, let's do some action. To the right, there's an item ball, guarded by a new monster. Let's take a look at his info. This is a Thexteron. He is weak to ice and lightning. He also has 3,120 HP, which I believe is more than his brother. If you haven't figured out by his name, Thexteron, as well as his general dog-like shape, this is in the same class of enemy as Pantheron, which means that they're generally easy to stagger. They tend to charge at you and stuff, but unlike the Pantherons, which are weak to fire, this guy is weak to ice and lightning. So we might want to incorporate such spells, or not spells, but elements in our actions. You'll also notice that Hope is actually focusing on ice spells. And that is thanks to having used Libra. So sometimes you don't need to use Libra if you know that the fight will be quick, but sometimes it's helpful to get that elemental information to help your Ravager friends out. You get no drops from that fight. This is actually the first enemy, or first encounter in the game with an Aegisol drop possibility. We previously saw, when we were talking about Shrouds, that it discussed Aegisol. Fortisol and Aegisol bestow their bonuses at the start of battle. This came up in Chapter 2, and we said Aegisols cannot be obtained. Fortisols, which we do have, cast Bravery, Faith, and Haste. An Aegisol is similar. We don't have one yet, but it casts Protect, Shell, Veil, and Vigilance. And we've seen Protect and Shell through Hope. We haven't seen Veil or Vigilance, but it will cast those. Actually, I believe that if I did go through the primer on status effects, it would discuss. No, it does not. Well, Vigilance and Veil have effects. This chest has a Libra scope. This next encounter has 2 of our Pantheron buddies, plus our new Thexteron pal. And if I recall, this is actually the very last Pantheron fight in the game, so say goodbye to your Panthers. They are gone forever. I accidentally shifted to Super Soldier, but it didn't matter. We got our first Protect of the game.
This stuff is what was left over from the scrap that Thou C took from Pulse to repair Cocoon.
We have our watch drone enemies here, but this time we don't have Saz or Vanille to help us, so maybe it would be nice to have Protect. Considering that they have these super attacks that we can't defend against. So we killed that watch drone before their attack went off, and that attack missed, so we haven't actually seen their attack go off yet. So let's actually take a moment to try to see something. There is, you can see on the minimap that there's actually an area down below that we can't access from here. I'm trying to see if we can get a good view of it, but oh, that's probably the best view that we can get. That random glimpse that I got through some random camera angle. Well, there's an area down there. Can't get a good look at it, but there's an area down there. Two watch drones and a Thexteron. Gonna focus on the watch drones to avoid their super attack from going off. Thexteron has done Warcry, which cast Bravery on him. You can see the lightning is now at red. But okay.
I can't stop now.
You can see that with Bravery, he hits harder, and he actually has a new attack that does a lot of damage. So we lost that fight. But we got the watch drones killed pretty fast. So we don't really have to worry about the watch drones as much. We might want to get Protect up once Dextron has that Bravery.
Stay sharp. Just stay out of my way.
It's also possible that we won't see the Bravery. And there we have it. I was going to comment in this fight, and that's probably not going to go over well considering the death that I just had, but one of the things that you have to sort of learn is that you don't need to heal as soon as you take damage. You can survive pretty well when you're at yellow HP, so you just have to be aware of the damage potential of your enemies, and Dextron with Bravery has a lot of damage dealing potential and can one-shot someone at yellow HP, so you might want to consider healing them and putting defensive spells on them. This is a new enemy, and we preempted him super easily. If I Libra him really fast. It's a Pulsework Soldier. He is weak to lightning. He halves physical and magical, and has a stagger point of 150%, with chain resistance of 70. But because we got the preempt, we staggered him quickly. And after stagger, he becomes normal to physical and magic, and we get the note, can alter own form. And we see that he's now opened up and reveals a weak spot, which is part of why he lowers his resistance, is because his weak spot is opened up. Unfortunately, we didn't get the kill fast enough, but we see that he's back to halved, and he's back to his default state. So, this is an example of an enemy who has a stagger effect, which provides an extra bonus from stagger. So normally, if you stagger an enemy, we've said that they get 100 percentage points added to their chain gauge. So when they stagger at 150%, they get 100 percentage, so the chain gauge goes up to 250%, which means that they take 2.5 times damage versus 1.5. But also, their physical and magic resistance goes from halved to normal, which means that damage is furthermore doubled. So, with Pulsework Soldiers, it's generally a good idea to stagger them before you decide to deal damage to them, unless you can somehow overpower their HP and physical magical resistances. And there's the Thextron. This is exclamation point removal. And I'm going to remove these accessories because there will be a party change. There's no way to know when a party change is happening, other than maybe seeing that exclamation point tells you there will be a story segment that might feature a party change.
Can we get through this way, you think? You know where you're going, right?
I've been here on missions before.
Missions? Nothing to do with the Purge, though.
The Purge is SciComm's baby. Our military is split into two arms. The Public Security and Intelligence Command, known as SciComm, and the Guardian Corps. I was Guardian Corps, Bodum Security Regiment.
Wait, But I don't get it. If you're not SciComm, then why did you board the train?
For Sarah.
Join the end of the line! Attention, Purge deportees. Follow instructions and stay in your lines. Personal belongings will be returned upon arrival. Halt! Do not leave your lines! This is for your own safety! Huh? What's the GC doing here? This op's under SciComm direction.
So direct me. Let me on. I want to be purged.
Only civs get purged. Sanctum staff and soldiers are exempt. Huh?
Then I quit.
Line up!
Excuse me. Hey, lady. What gives?
I volunteered.
Really? You don't look ready to go quiet into that good night.
You want quiet? You better take the next train.
Well, now I really want to see what you're up to.
I had to rescue Sarah before they transported the vestige to Pulse, and out of my reach. My only chance to save her was to join the Purge.
You're telling me you got on that train so you could save your sister? That's crazy. I could never do something like that.
It's not a question of can or can't. There are some things in life you just do.
Easy for someone like you to say. Lightning! She left me.
One, two, three. Ah, we go.
What are you up to? Hey! Wait up! Can't keep up with this girl.
Saz has gained access to the Synergist role. Synergists play a supporting role in combat, using their abilities to enhance and strengthen themselves and their allies. As a Synergist, Saz can learn abilities to improve the party's offensive capabilities. Currently, Saz can use the Faith spell, which raises the target's magic attribute, increasing the damage dealt by that target's spells. As he develops in the role of Synergist, Saz will also be able to learn Bravery, which boosts the target's strength. With both of these spells at his disposal, Saz will be able to vastly improve the party's effectiveness against a variety of opponents. When he has gained adequate CP, open the main menu with triangle and select Crystarium to teach him Bravery via Christogenesis. Three-way battles. At times you will encounter enemy groups engaged in battle with one another. With their attentions occupied, it becomes easier for you to initiate combat with a preemptive strike. Coming into contact with a member of either side will initiate a battle against both. However, the enemies may not even notice your presence at first, continuing to fight one another instead. When this occurs, it is most effective to concentrate all of your attacks against the side you expect to have the most trouble defeating. Once you have defeated the first group of enemies with help from their foes, you can turn and fight the already weakened second faction. Pick your targets poorly, and you may be left waging a long and bitter battle against overwhelming odds. So we have our party change to Saz and Vanille. We have some further information on day 13, volunteering. After discovering that Sarah was being held captive by the Pulse Fal'Cie, Lightning volunteered herself to be purged. The Fal'Cie was to be transported away from Cocoon along with the Pulse deportees. Lightning needed to board the train and reach the lower world entity before Sarah was taken beyond her reach. Saz too had his reasons for approaching Lightning and joining her as she headed for the Pulse Fal'Cie. The train carried them away, bound for the restricted zone known as the Hanging Edge. And therefore starts the events of Final Fantasy XIII. This is what preceded the intro cutscene of this game. So we're starting to fill in the gaps of the first 13 days. I mean, we've been filling in the gaps previously, but we have the endpoint here. Still need to see what happened on day 1, what was the first event that catalyzed everything, and what led to this mysterious 0-day event. Why is this relevant? What happened with Lightning's birthday, considering that the day after was when she decided to volunteer for the Purge, and stuff. Was there another thing on the bottom? Yeah, 3-way battles. We just saw that one. But now with Saz and Vanille in our party, we saw at the end of Chapter 3 when we beat the Garuda Interceptor, when the Crystarium expanded, that Saz gained access to the Synergist role, and Vanille gained access to the Saboteur role. So I can read out the Saboteur description now. Role, Saboteur. Saboteurs use their skills to weaken enemies. Their bag of tricks include not only attribute-lowering abilities, but also those that inflict status ailments like poison. When successful, these abilities increase enemy chain bonuses. Even if they fail to inflict status ailments, Saboteur abilities still deal damage. However, once enemies have been weakened sufficiently, it is generally best to shift Saboteurs to other roles. Role bonus, boosted success rates. Abilities are more likely to succeed on enemies. Allies share a reduced bonus. So this Saboteur role is sort of the, well, Saboteur of the 6 roles in making enemies weaker. So we now have access to all 6 roles in this game: Commando, Ravager, Sentinel, Medic, Synergist, and Saboteur. And I've neglected Sentinel and Medic. We're actually not going to be able to use Sentinel for a very long time. Medic is available, but I'm neglecting it. But I might as well read it since it is here. Medics are healers capable of restoring HP, removing status ailments, and even reviving KO'd allies. When they remove status ailments, the most recently inflicted ailment is always removed first. Medics are incredibly helpful, but they also reduce a battle team's damage-dealing capacity. If you wish to end battles quickly, it may be necessary to fight without them. Role bonus, augmented healing. Healing abilities and items restore more HP. Allies share a reduced bonus. But as I mentioned, we do have potions. We have 39 potions, quite a lot. We have Phoenix Downs that can revive allies from KO. We have 15 of those, which is sufficient. And as mentioned in the primer, if you have an ally or even the leader as a medic, they are not attacking the enemies, which means that the fights don't progress as fast. So leaving someone as an ally for a duration of a fight means you effectively have one fewer party member in your fight. On the other hand, throwing a potion is quick enough, and at this point it gets the job done, especially a Doctor's Code potion, which at this point with 400 HP is recovering just about 70 to 75% of your party's HP. So instead of using a medic, especially when you have only 2 party members, you should throw potions instead. Which is why I've been neglecting the medic role. But we do have a second synergist, Saz, who has Faith, which raises targets' magic. And he can also learn Bravery, which raises target's strength. These actually boost the respective stats by 40%. And by increasing those stats, that means that everything hits harder. Commandos hit harder, Ravagers hit harder, medics would heal for more if we use them. And some other effects as well. So these are generally very useful effects to have, especially for fights that last long, which is basically most fights in Final Fantasy 13. They last pretty long. Being able to cast Faith and Bravery at will to increase your damage dealing potential will shorten the duration of fights and make them end faster. That's redundant, but anyway. Saboteur, this is our first Saboteur we've seen in the game. Vanille starts with D-Shell, which reduces target's magic resistance and deal magic damage. And Deprotect, which reduces target's physical resistance and deals magic damage. The damage dealing capability of Saboteurs are pretty low. You don't want to rely on Saboteurs for damage dealing directly, but being able to inflict these status ailments helps tremendously. So these titles, D-Shell and Deprotect, are of course the inverse of Protect and Shell, which means that they, instead of increasing resistance values, reduce them instead. Which means that you will be able to do more damage. And notice that we have two roles right here, Synergist, which increases our strength and magic stats, and Saboteur, which reduces enemies' physical and magic resistances. These two combo very well together. What do I mean by these two? I mean Saz's Synergist and Vanille's Saboteur. They combo very well together. Now, I mentioned that Saz's Bravery and Faith increase stats by 40%, so how much do D-Shell and Deprotect lower resistance values by? It turns out it's a significant amount. With Deprotect or D-Shell, the respective attacks deal 89% more damage, which is over twice as much of a boost as Protect was, or Bravery and Faith were. Now, say that Saz casts Faith on himself, and Vanille casts D-Shell on the enemy. How much damage would, say, Saz's Fire do, which is magic elemental? The answer is it will do 2.646 times its base damage. That's 165% boost to damage, which is very hefty. It's just shy of triple damage, and who can say no to triple damage? If you can make fights end faster by doing triple damage, why don't you? So it's going to be a good idea to incorporate this Synergist and Saboteur synergy in the upcoming fights. So we're starting off with, we have, excuse me. We have 3 paradigms right now. Saz has 2 rolls, Vanille has 3 rolls, which means in total we can produce 6 paradigms again. And the ones in question would be these 6: Dual Casting, Undermine, Yin and Yang, Archmage, Tide Turner, and Symbiosis. You'll notice there are no commandos here. This is the only segment of the game, actually, where we do not have commandos, and this makes it, this area is notorious for being a very difficult area for people to be able to get through, because without commandos, how do we get chain duration? We've mentioned that chain duration is aided by commando abilities that add 3.33 seconds to chain duration, whereas Ravager abilities add only 0.9 seconds, and with only 2 Ravagers that can execute 3 spells at once, we can't get enough chain duration on a target. How could we possibly get chain duration? The answer is through Saboteurs. Saboteurs add an amount of chain for each cast. It's lower than Commando, but higher than Ravager. I don't actually recall the exact number. This is if a debuff does not get inflicted. If they cast a string of spells, but nothing lands or sticks, it still adds chain duration, and it's significant enough to be able to last long enough. But if a debuff does stick, it does in fact add a significant amount of chain duration that's even better than the 3.33 seconds of Commando. So we're going to be utilizing Vanille's Saboteur in the upcoming fights, not just to inflict debuffs, but also to get chain duration so that we can in fact kill enemies. The only other thing is, again, we have these two medic paradigms. We're not going to actually utilize them. I'm going to switch them back to Ravagers. I don't intend on using Archmage as much, but they are there, and we do have the 6 slots filled up. Generally, you really have no excuse to not fill all 6 paradigms. You might as well fill them all with some sort of paradigm, even if it's one that might have a very limited use. Early on in the game, it's very likely that there will be very limited use paradigms. Later on in the game, you're going to not have enough paradigm slots to fit all the paradigms that you would ideally want. So there's that. Now the game suggests picking up Bravery and Faith, or rather Bravery and Deprotect, but I'm going to hold off on that because we don't really have physical attacks other than Saz's Flame Strike. But we do have a variety of magical attacks. We have Saz's Fire and Arrow, and we have Vanille's Water and Arrow. So we're going to stick with magic setups. So I'm not going to bother learning these different abilities just yet. So I'm going to hold off on that. It's actually okay if I pick up Saz's Bravery. Picking up Vanille's Deprotect will affect how these next fights go. But I will develop Saz's Ravager, because we do have a new ability up here. If I can reach there, I don't think I can. But we have here Overwhelm. Boost chain bonus effect of attacks for each ally targeting the same enemy. We haven't learned it, so I don't have it yet. But it's another automatic ability, which in this team we don't have automatic abilities yet, but Lightning had a variety. And so what Overwhelm does is it will automatically boost chaining of Saz's actions, rather, provided that there's at least one other person targeting the same enemy. Basically, you are overwhelming the enemy with chaining, and therefore can chain higher and faster. Vanille has a new ability up here. This is Fire. Saz had Fire. Now Vanille has Fire. Medic has no abilities, so I'm going to hold off on the rest of that for now. Equipment-wise, it will be most effective, I believe, to give Vanille a Magician's Mark, for a reason that we'll see in the next fight. Saz, we don't have a Magician's Mark, and we're going to be fighting a variety of 3-way battles, as hinted by the primer, so I don't really need to worry about boosting his HP. I'll just give him the Doctor's Code, because then he can do really effective healing. So the only other thing to consider is what should my default paradigm be, and I'm going to default to Undermine. So the 3-way battles were brought up in the primer. You can see that these enemies are actually fighting each other. If I run in right now, they're not going to see me. They can't see me ever. This is not true of all 3-way battles. Some 3-way battles will have the enemies see you, but the ones in this chapter, they will never see you. Which means that no matter what, you will always get a preemptive strike. When you get a preemptive strike in a 3-way battle, the enemies keep attacking each other. If you don't get a preemptive strike, they will attack you immediately. That won't be relevant until chapter 10, but just so you know.
Guess running's out of the question.
So we have to prioritize our targets, sort of. Another thing also, by the way, they start at half HP because of the three-way battle effect. When you enter a battle in a three-way, all enemies start at half HP to simulate the idea that they were fighting each other to begin with. But anyway, everything starts at half HP, and we got the preemptive strike, which means that all these chain gauges are almost at stagger point. You might wonder, based on how I've been discussing stagger duration, how much stagger duration, or how much chain duration rather, these things have at preempt. If you preempt an enemy and they get an immediate chain, what is the chain duration? They start at 10 seconds. They have 10 seconds of chain duration right now. So what I'm going to do next is a speedrun trick. This is going to be tough to explain pretty fast, but I'm hovering over the Pulsework Soldier. I selected Libra out of force of habit. We don't need to use Libra because we already have intel on these guys. But we're hovering over the Pulsework Soldier. This is to manipulate Vanille's targeting on the Pulsework Soldier. Once Vanille starts casting, I can change targets to something else, like the Watch Drone. And this way I have gotten 2 of these enemies staggered. We won't be able to stagger all 4 of them because the chain duration of the other 2 will expire before we can get to them. The next thing I'm going to do here is shift to Tide Turner in order to get Faith on Vanille, which is the more important one. Faith on Saz, not as important. This Watch Drone is weak to thunder and water, but Saz doesn't have thunder or water. He only has fire or arrow, so he can't exploit these vulnerabilities. But Vanille does have water, and so she will use water spells against the Watch Drones. The Pulsework Soldier is weak to thunder, but no one has thunder, so we can't exploit that one. Now you notice, or you might have noticed, but it went by quickly, that we just killed that Watch Drone, but their stagger almost expired. Why was stagger so short? What affects the length of stagger? Because we have fought a variety of enemies, and we've seen stagger last pretty long in certain fights. What affects the length of stagger? Well, the length of stagger is actually based on the chain duration of the enemy at stagger point. We started the fight with 10 seconds of chain duration, some time expired. We cast either D-Shell on the Pulsework Soldier, or we cast Fire on the Watch Drone, and they both staggered. Their stagger durations are reflective of what the remaining chain duration was. And because we staggered the Watch Drone with a Ravager spell, which doesn't add much to chain duration, the stagger duration of the Watch Drone is respectively short. Now, the Pulsework Soldier, on the other hand, was staggered by a Saboteur ability, which has more chain duration. And actually, the debuff landed, which you can't tell just yet, but you will be able to tell when I switch targets. Because it landed, a significant amount of time was added to chain duration, and then this target was staggered, which means that it should have a lengthy stagger, meaning it should still be mostly midway at least through stagger, and that is the case. He is halfway through stagger. Despite the Watch Drone being almost done with stagger, the Pulsework Soldier is still only halfway done with his stagger. This mechanic of stagger duration is a bit... I probably made it sound more complicated than it is. But basically, if you maintain chain duration well enough, you'll be able to get long enough staggers. This is why three-way fights tend to feel like... Or not three-way fights, why preemptive strikes tend to feel like staggers are short. That is because if you stagger a target immediately at the start of the fight, you'll only have the 10 seconds of chain duration as opposed to a higher value with chain maintenance.
Never seen a rig like this before. Here we go. Oh! Whoa, 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 whoa! I knew that would happen.
We have another three-way fight here. This one is another Pulsework soldier, and again, these guys can't ever see us. Also, 2 Thexterons. So, it was mentioned in the primer, you have to prioritize which enemies you take out. Certainly, it's the Pulsework soldier versus 2 Thexterons. So you might wonder whether it would be better to take on the 2 Thexterons or take on the Pulsework soldier. Actually, you could take out 1 Thexteron, then you could take out the Pulsework soldier, then you could take out the 2nd Thexteron. But we have to be really careful if we choose to go that route, that we probably want to take out the Pulsework soldier while he's staggered, so that we don't have to re-stagger him. And we don't want to lose his chain duration early on in the fight, so how do we really solve this conundrum? Well, the best solution is probably to wait for Vanilla to cast D-Shell on this Pulsework soldier again, and then stagger with the arrow ability. Now, you might not have noticed, but the Pulsework soldier this time staggered on the second Vanilla action, which for a variety of reasons, well, not even a variety, for one simple reason, the first debuff didn't land. This affects what actually is the action that staggers him. He actually has a shorter stagger, which sounds a little wrong, but he does have a shorter stagger, so that's something to watch out for. So because of his shorter stagger, I think I'm going to try to focus on him faster. But he's already dead, so that's good. Now, remember, we have Bravery on this Thexteron. We saw previously how we insta-died to the Bravery, but we got him killed. Now we have this guy left. He has no chain duration, but once D-Shell lands, he has a significant amount of chain duration that we can stagger him easily enough. We didn't even need him staggered because the bonus of Faith and D-Shell made it so we can end that fight quickly enough. I'm running the wrong direction. The next battle actually has a variety of enemies in it. We have 2 Thexterons, 3 Watch Drones, and a Pulsework soldier, and it looks like everyone's ganging up on the Pulsework soldier. So if we take out the Pulsework soldier, then everything else attacks us, and that's a lot of enemies that we have to take out. So this time I think I'm going to focus on the Pulsework soldier last. So it targets on the Pulsework soldier. I'm actually going to focus over a Watch Drone and get the D-Shell inflicted. And we get it killed immediately.
You see that coming? Watch and learn, kid.
So I'm going to do a lot of back and forth in this fight in order to get chain duration built up. I'm going to keep going back and forth between Undermine to get a D-Shell inflicted, and then dual casting to kill the enemy. I don't want Vanille to debuff multiple things because I want to take advantage of chain duration.
Watch and learn, kid.
In order to be able to stagger if I need to, or at the very least build up chain to do more damage with later attacks. Alright, so now we're down to the Pulsework soldier. This guy we do definitely need to stagger, and this will be aided by landing D-Shell. So now that he's staggered, again, he loses his halved physical and magic resistances. He's normal now, so he will take twice as much damage, plus this chain duration boost, plus D-Shell damage, plus Faith. We were doing just under 700 points of damage there. Whereas if we hadn't done the Faith, D-Shell, and stagger, we would have been doing much less damage. That fight would take a long time if we didn't take advantage of all of those mechanics. Oh, before I forget, there's a treasure over here. A black belt, which we have seen. We saw it in B&W Outfitters. It increases physical resistance.
This should do it. Huh? Piece of cake.
A three-way fight here with 2 Pulsework soldiers and 3 Thexterons. Because Pulsework soldiers take effort to stagger, I'm going to focus on one of those. Then I'm going to take out the Thexterons. But I'm going to wait for Vanille to cast D-Shell first before I try that. Because I want to make sure there's an extended duration to stagger. Get the Faith for damage boosts. Now the Pulsework soldier should die quickly enough. We're focusing on Thexteron now. This is perfect. Got the D-Shell landed. Shift away before Vanille tries to land D-Shell on something else. Get D-Shell landed. Get D-Shell landed. Kill.
Did you see that coming?
And then we can work on staggering the Pulsework soldier. We could have focused on the Pulsework soldier as the penultimate enemy instead and take out the Thexteron last, but it doesn't really matter. He doesn't hit too hard. The only annoying thing is that he can interrupt your actions.
I'm tougher than you thought, huh? We made it.
Where's Grumpy? Got left behind, huh?
Leave me alone.
Hey,
This is pointless. Can't keep up. Can't get home. It's over for me.
It's not over. We'll get you home.
I don't have one. Now that Mom is.
What about your dad?
Not making a wish, Hope?
Mom, you still believe in that kind of stuff? Wishing on fireworks? Really? That's for little kids.
Who are you calling kid?
To you? What'd you wish for?
Oh, that next year, your father could come with us.
Why? It's better like this. We don't need him. That night, they found the Foul Sea in the Bodum vestige. The next day, soldiers sealed off the town, and we couldn't get back to Palom Polum. They forced us onto the train with everyone else. My mom, she was frantic. She wanted to get us home, so she tried to fight. She got tricked by Snow. He used her!
Let's get you home, okay? Your dad's gotta be worried.
Let him worry. Why should I care? He doesn't.
Any father cares.
Sass?
It's nothing. Forget it.
Come with me, okay?
This ought to do it. We've got time. Get you back home. Your dad will be happy to see you.
With that, Hope has joined our party. We have 3 people again, which is great. Day 11, Mother and Son. Residents of Palampolum, Hope and his mother came to Bodum to see the fireworks display. That same night, Psychom discovered the Pulse Fal'Cie slumbering within the vestige. The following day, the Sanctum announced the discovery and sealed off the entire district of Bodum. Trapped by the quarantine and unable to return home, mother and son were forced to join the other victims of the Purge. So it's especially tragic knowing that the mother passes away. That, you know, on day 11, Hope and his mother, I don't know if her name has been said yet. I don't know if I should say it. Might be a little spoilery, but Hope and his mother appeared in Bodum on day 11, and then in day 13, the mother dies. 2 days after they decide to go see the fireworks. Terrible events and stuff. But we do now have Hope in our party, which means that we have access to 2 synergists, which seems to suggest that we have some sort of superiority in party composition. But actually, we still lack commandos. But we do have a team of 3 Ravagers, which means that we can utilize Tri-Disaster. The game gives us medic paradigms, but again, we don't need medics. But we do have access to a paradigm that is really good, Smart Bomb. Ravs combine their attacks while Sab weakens dangerous opponents. This is one of the most effective chaining and debuffing paradigms in the game. You can start a fight in Smart Bomb even when you have commandos available, because the Saboteur will give chain duration, will also debuff the enemy, and the 2 Ravagers will work on chaining the enemy, which is really powerful. That's why this is called Smart Bomb, because it's a smart paradigm to use. The only other thing that I might want is a synergist with 2 Ravagers. Maybe even a synergist with a Saboteur and a Ravager. Gorilla is an effective paradigm that combines buffing and debuffing with chaining. Now, one of the most commonly used paradigms that are unfortunately very ineffective are evened odds. Med heals while Sin strengthens allies and Sab weakens enemies. Because it's believed that buffing and healing go hand in hand, and a Saboteur probably could be thrown in just for the sake of debuffing. But generally people will set up a Sin Sab Med and will use this for both buffing and debuffing. And then we'll have a Tri-Disaster, a Relentless Assault, Aggression, Solidarity, and other sort of weak paradigms. But really, Saboteurs are an offensive an offensive role and can be used in offensive paradigms like Smart Bomb. And Synergists are, they certainly take away from being able to be offensive against a target, but you can certainly combine them with 2 offensive paradigms to maintain assault on an enemy. So I'm going to incorporate Synergists while also doing other things, instead of trying to combine them with other defensive roles. But I'm going to start in Smart Bomb, just because I want to make sure that we get some chain duration as needed. Because Hope's in our party, we probably want to make sure he has a silver bangle. But I'm going to leave everything else the same. So here's a Pulseworks soldier. The nice thing about Pulseworks soldiers is they are really easy to get a preemptive strike on. I'm gonna wait for Vanille to try to land a D-shell. Instead, Hope took over. I wanted Hope to get the D-shell, or Vanille to get the D-shell for chain duration, for a longer stagger duration. But it doesn't really matter. The fight's short, regardless.
Yes!
This chest has an inerta. This is a new Hope weapon. Designed with balanced performance in mind, this boomerang deliberately avoids the extreme characteristics of competitor models. Contrast that with his default Air Wing. A sport hunting model boosts physical and magical resistance when the wielder is severely wounded. Inerta, to start off with, is actually a little weaker than the Air Wing. Way I can, yeah, this is better. It's a little weaker because it offers less strength and it doesn't offer the critical shield attribute or passive ability. You might wonder why there's an inerta here. Well, for some reason it's here. I don't really have a good reason. For some reason it's there. But even if we were to equip it, it wouldn't really matter too much, other than losing critical shield. Losing strength doesn't matter because Hope doesn't have any physical abilities. Just like Vanille, he forgot how to attack between Chapter 2 and Chapter 3. So this is another Pulseworks soldier. He came out of a gate and saw us immediately. Whoops, I thought we were out of the battle zone. We're not yet. Trying to lure him to the edge. We're past the invisible battle line, so he loses his aggro. And then he turns around, at which point we can run into him, and he's very easy to get the preempt on because he's pretty blind and slow. There are some new enemies.
Just as I was getting used to it.
Incubus. They are weak to thunder and water. Which I believe no one has thunder, but Vanille has water again. So I'm gonna buff Vanille.
Changing gears. Changing the play.
Now we didn't get D-Shell landed there. I shifted to the wrong paradigm, but we didn't get D-Shell landed. You can see Saz is doing strikes. For some reason. So I'm going to manually do fire, arrow, fire because we have D-Shell.
You should see your
His
daddy
magic
now.
stat is higher, and it's generally faster to stick with one or the other.
Isn't that
A warship from Pulse.
You mean they made it this far?
Of course not. Not during the war, not since. They might have tried, but none of their forces made it into Cocoon. They only damaged the outer rim. Then the Sanctum's Fal'Cie pushed them back. What'd you, sleep through history?
More or less. So, what's a ship from Pulse doing here?
Once the war was over, people couldn't live near the rim anymore, in places like the Hanging Edge. So the Fal'Cie, they gathered up scrap from Pulse and used it for rebuilding here. This is what was left. A bunch of garbage.
Who'd have thunk? A Pulse Fal'Cie and who knows what mixed in with all the trash.
Who'da thunk?
The War of Transgression. Several hundred years ago, the armies of Pulse attempted to invade Cocoon in a conflict known today as the War of Transgression. The Sanctum's Fal'Cie were able to repel the lower world forces before they breached Cocoon's interior, but not before they managed to seriously damage areas lying near the world's outer rim. Details surrounding the clash remain shrouded in mystery, but the government's swift and decisive response to this violent Pulsian transgression minimized casualties and greatly boosted public faith in both the Sanctum and their Fal'Cie. Lower world artifacts. In the aftermath of the War of Transgression, regions near Cocoon's outer rim were left uninhabitable due to the severe trauma they had sustained. To undo this damage, the Fal'Cie gathered materials from the surface of Pulse and rebuilt Cocoon's wounded landscape using them. Bodom was one city so affected. Like the others, it still bears lingering traces of post-war reconstruction in the form of leftover lower world artifacts. The Pulse vestige that hid a dormant Fal'Cie was one such artifact. So, I believe this is the first mention, actually, of the War of Transgression. Several hundred years ago, Pulse attempted to invade Cocoon. Sanctum Fal'Cie protected Cocoon, and Pulse became an eternal enemy, allegedly. Which is why there's now this fear of Pulse forces because of the previous War of Transgression. Or so it seems.
I'm gonna go peek ahead.
Do me a favor. Stop wandering off and stay where I can keep my eye on you.
Some more of these incubi to the side.
Follow the old guy's lead.
You can see that these guys love interrupting us.
Time to pull the old switcheroo.
Over 1,000 damage with the Faith, D-Shell, Stagger, Water, Weakness ability. That's how powerful combining these buffs and debuffs can be. So this is actually a preempt because we got it on the Pulsework Soldier, even though the Incubi
This is too much. Thanks, Vanille.
That is my donation message, or that is my donation alert, which you can't see on screen. If you're wondering what that random ass sound was. Someone donated during this stream, and I thank them greatly for their aid. But anyway, even if one person or one enemy sees you, you can still get a preemptive strike if you hit an enemy that doesn't see you. So we were able to take advantage of that delay in the Pulsework Soldier seeing us in order to get the preemptive strike. Generally, once one enemy sees you, most enemies will also see you. So it's quite rare that that will happen. But because the Pulse Work Soldier was still in the active activating, it worked out. So we've been able to get through these fights seemingly easily, but casually many people struggle in this area because they don't know how to get chain duration. I've been taking advantage of preemptive strikes whenever I can, but utilizing D-Shell for stagger capability is really powerful in this section. This chest has a Phoenix down, and this chest has a metal armband. We didn't get the preemptive strike here. There's actually a new type of enemy here. This succubus. Weak to thunder and water, just like their friends. Capable of inflicting deprotect. Yes, enemies can inflict debuffs on you, just as you are capable of inflicting debuffs on them. Since we have a Saboteur, I'm going to call attention to the status immunities section of the intel screen that you can see in the upper right. There are a total of 11 things that appear up here, and we don't know what they all are just yet, but this tells you whether you can even try to get a certain status effect inflicted on that target. 2 of these debuffs are lit up. One is Pain and one is Fog. We have not seen those effects yet, but if we had them right now, we would not be able to get them inflicted on the enemy in question. We do not see the icon for D-Shell, which means that we can inflict D-Shell, and we have inflicted D-Shell. For the succubus, though, there are some question marks, because we don't have full intel on them yet, because we only cast Libra once. You either have to cast Libra twice, throw Libra Scope, or fight enough succubi in order to get full intel. And so we don't know if we can inflict D-Shell on them or not. If we don't know that we can inflict it, Saboteurs will try, and the first cast of a debuff will reveal the intel. So we can get intel without casting Libra, partly through just the course of the fight, picking up information, partly by killing an enemy and getting intel through defeat, thanks to, I believe each enemy has a Libra point stat that is invisible, that automatically displays an amount of intel after you beat them. Or we can cast debuffs on them, and once we cast it once, that information gets populated. Now, the succubus has lower HP, which sort of makes it seem like you would probably want to save it for last because it's weaker, or maybe you want to take it out first because it's faster to take out. Maybe we want to take out the incubus first because it says it coordinates attacks against a single target and delivers devastating physical attacks. But we do want to take out the succubus first because they can inflict deprotect. We can see this right now for a fact. They inflict deprotect. And that, comboed with the devastating physical attacks of the incubus, means we don't want it to get that off. We're gonna need to take it out fast. And we got it killed before it could do a thing. Hope's almost dead. I could use a medic, or I could throw a potion, and he's fully healed. This has a large variety of enemies.
Time to pull the old switcheroo.
I'm saving the Pulsework Soldier for last because the Incubus actually hits harder. And see, I actually almost died here because everyone was targeting Saz.
Did you see that coming? Bobbing and weaving. The old man still got it. Hope Snow's all right.
Here we get a double Pulsework Soldier fight. Whoops. Oh well. I'm gonna go ahead and cast Faith on us all because we don't have exploitable weaknesses in this fight. You'll notice I've been using auto support in order to get that done. Because all I have is Faith, it's always going to cast Faith. Once we have the chain duration with D-Shell, we can take out, or we can stagger the Pulsework Soldier and then end the fight faster.
Yes!
Hey, welcome to the party.
You miss us?
Would it kill her to smile?
Time to move.
Very short cutscene. Lightning's in our party now. And apparently that is enough to warrant its own data log section, but regardless, Lightning has returned, and with that, Commando has returned. We are now done with the section where we don't have access to commandos. For the duration of the game, you'll always have someone with the commando role in your party. You lose Hope, so Hope is now kicked to the wayside, so he's going to lose his Silver Bangle, but we have Lightning. We're still leading with Saz, who only has Ravager or Synergist, Lightning, who has Commando and Ravager, and Vanille, who has Ravager, Saboteur, and Medic. That means there are a total of 12 paradigms that you can come up with. If we take out Vanille's Medic, which we're not going to use, there are a total of 8 paradigms that we can come up with of a variety of efficiency, of utility, I guess, a variety of usefulness. You should almost always create a smart bomb paradigm. You should almost always create a tri-disaster paradigm whenever you have the possibility to do so. These are the most effective chaining paradigms, and if there's only one thing that you have picked up on through the course of this playthrough, it's that chaining and staggering and boosting chain gauges overall are very effective in taking out enemies. It's not the only valid technique. If you can kill an enemy quickly enough by just blitzing it to hell, then you might as well just do that. But if you're going to need to stagger, these are two paradigms that are very effective at doing so. Ordinarily, I would say load up one paradigm with as many commandos as possible, but since lightning is our only commando, that means Relentless Assault is unfortunately our most offensive paradigm. And in some instances, actually Try Disaster would be a little better. We don't want medics right now, so we can ditch this one. We do want some amount of synergist, so we're going to incorporate that. So how should these other three paradigms be laid out? Well, I do like the idea of chaining and debuffing and buffing at the same time, so Gorilla is a good paradigm. We now have two paradigms with saboteurs, so we don't really need a third one as much, unless we want to duplicate one for the sake of going back and forth, which we don't really need too much. Doubling up on Relentless Assault is probably wise. Doubling up on Try Disaster is probably wise. So in order, we have two Relentless Assaults, we have two Try Disasters, we have a Smart Bomb, and we have a Gorilla. We have two paradigms devoted to, not devoted to, but containing saboteurs, which are good. Only one paradigm with a synergist, but we don't have too many buffs that are relevant just yet. We have two Try Disasters for the sake of going back and forth with ATB refreshes. We have two Relentless Assaults for the sake of effective damage dealing. I'm going to start in Smart Bomb. Now, Lightning's in our party, which means that we have access to a very effective combination of attacks. We have Attack and Blitz back. Blitz is our only area of effect attack. It will hit multiple targets for physical damage, which probably means it's one that will be utilized, especially since Lightning is still heavy on strength, or at least I unequipped the Power Wristband. I never actually used it, but with the Power Wristband, Lightning has high strength. So we would like to be able to involve her strength, which means that we probably want to get Saz's Bravery at this point, and Vanille's Deep Protect, so that we can utilize Lightning's physical prowess. Now, there's no other abilities on Vanille. There's two more Ravager abilities on Lightning, and those are actually physically based ones, so it is a very good time to get these. Spark Strike and Aqua Strike. These will actually be very useful almost immediately, as we'll see. Oops. Saz has one more Ravager ability. It's the Overwhelm ability, as I was talking about earlier, and now I can actually show you that it is in fact an auto ability. It boosts chain bonus for each ally targeting the same enemy, therefore Saz can chain slightly more effectively than previously. There's one more synergist ability, and it's Vigilance. Boosts target's odds of interrupting actions and avoiding interruption of own. Notice in the previous fights that people kept getting interrupted, namely by Pulsework soldiers and by the Incubus. Vigilance, if you cast it, will actually help prevent those interruptions from taking place. If I had gotten Vigilance and I had spent the time casting Vigilance, we would have been able to avoid having to get interrupted frequently by multiple enemies at once. Now that we have Vigilance, though, I'm probably not going to spend the time casting it, because you do have to cast it, and if we can end a fight faster by just taking out the enemy, then we don't need Vigilance as much. So we're pretty well set up, and we have all the abilities, so now I'm just going to focus on HP for just overall survival. think we can afford any more here. There's that node to the side, but it's too expensive. 2 nodes there. And there's 3 here. And 3 here. And oh, we can afford that one. So Saz actually has a significant amount of HP. Saz actually ends up with the second highest HP of the entire the entire game. And Hope has the lowest. Lightning actually has the second lowest for some reason. But in any case, we've boosted our HPs, we can increase our survivability, and we should be able to take on the upcoming enemies. With Lightning in tow, we don't really have to worry about chaining as much, or chain duration as much, because with a commando, it's very easy to get chain duration. Notice that Lightning's actually going back and forth between Thunder and Spark Strike because she's trying to take advantage of the lightning weakness of the Pulsework Soldier, but she's also trying to optimize chain per ATB, which means that she's going between Spark Strike and Thunder very ineffectively because those animations are very slow. This is a shortcoming of the programmed AI. They tend to believe that these actions are better when they're actually overall slower. At this point, it would be more ideal for her to spam Spark Strike because it would do a lot of damage, but instead she's going to keep alternating.
I'll do what I can.
Oops.
Just as I was getting used to things.
But here, she is alternating between Spark Strike and Aqua Strike, which is really effective because these guys are weak to lightning and water, and because she is strength spec, it's doing the most damage between, you know, Spark Strike and Aqua Strike versus Thunder and Water. Now, the weakness stat means that she will deal double damage, or generally attacks that do lightning or water damage do double damage. The commando roll bonus also serves to increase damage. Currently, it is increasing her own damage by 100 percentage points, meaning plus 100%, meaning that the commando roll also does double damage, but currently she can only do non-elemental attacks. So Spark Strike and commando's attack rather, will do the same amount of damage, but Spark Strike comes with the bonus of increasing the target's chain gauge, which will make subsequent attacks do more damage. So for the time being, it's actually more effective to have Lightning be a Ravager in these fights, because she will do more, or she will contribute to everyone doing more damage while doing the same amount of damage herself with the initial Spark Strike, and then subsequent attacks will enjoy a better chain bonus. You can further augment it by casting Bravery on her, and since Vanille has water, we can also cast Faith on her to boost that.
Hold it together.
And even though we haven't staggered, we still killed the Incubus pretty quickly because of exploiting all sorts of damage boosting things.
That's you. Done. nothing to it.
Doing good.
So this fight, unlike the previous fights, has 2 succubi, but only a single incubus. The succubi were quick and easy to kill, but this time we're not really going to be able to stop them from getting a deprotect off. And you'll see they're also capable of bestowing bravery. So if they cast deprotect on us and bravery on the incubus can really wreck our team. But in this case, it might be better to take out the incubus, who is the primary damage dealer, and then the succubi, who, you know, inflict deprotect and bravery, won't be able to have a powerful incubus next to them. See, we already have deprotect on Lightning and Vanille. Thankfully, neither of those are our allies, but we have killed the incubus. And the succubus passes quickly.
Tougher than you thought, huh?
Come to pop. Change in the play.
Here we have an incubus and 2 pulsework soldiers. We're gonna take out these succubus. Sorry, I said succubus, but I said incubus. I meant succubus. We're gonna take out the succubus before it buffs the pulsework soldiers and debuffs us.
Change in the play. Hold it together. Ha!
Now you can see there's a really short stagger here because I didn't have much chain duration upon staggering. This enemy was guarding an Ember Ring. Did I grab the... I did. I don't remember if I mentioned the Libra Scope in there, but... one of the previous fights was also guarding something.
Hurry up.
So, let's take the moment to see where our Crystarium situation is. 210 more CP maxes out Saz's Ravager. 120 more fills up his Synergist, and actually we can't afford all of that. We're just 3 shy. Or not 3 shy, we're 7 shy. I can math. But I don't need that strength because Saz does not have a physical... or no, he does have Flame Strike, but I'm not using Flame Strike. Lightning is 90 plus 120 away from filling her commando, and will get some strength boost in doing so, so I'm going to go ahead and grab that. She is some HP nodes away from finishing her Ravager. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. She can't get both of these, but the one that gives more HP costs less CP, so that's the better one to get, if we have to make a choice here. Vanille has a maxed Ravager, a maxed Saboteur, and not a maxed Medic. That won't be able to max it. But this is a strength node, so it doesn't help her at all. So everyone's Crystariums, well, we haven't looked at Hope, but we're not using them, so it doesn't matter. Everyone's mostly maxed in their Crystarium to this point. And we did this with only fighting each fight along the way once. If we fought something twice, we would certainly be able to max the Crystarium. So thus far, there has not been really any reason to grind, other than just fighting everything along the way. And by doing so, we've also picked up a lot of insight on the battle system and learned some strategies that work well. Or rather, I've been telling you strategies that work well, but ideally, the player knows some effective strategies at this point. Just by experimenting.
What do you suppose that is?
What is that?
Pulse armament.
And that's bad for us, isn't it?
You have eyes, don't you?
Here we have a boss. Let's go Libra him. This guy is called Dreadnought. 80 chain resistance, stagger point 200%. No elemental weaknesses, halves physical and magical. Has 17,940 HP. It seems like we're going to want to stagger him because that's a lot of HP that we have to get through. So I'm only going to focus on Bravery because Vanille's already done debuffing, and without any elemental weaknesses, Commando will be the most effective damage dealer. We won't be able to exploit any Ravager utility.
Hold it together. Changing gears. Changing the play. Thought we were goners. You all right?
I think so.
Incoming.
Yes, this is in fact a two-stage fight. Stage 2, he has the same elemental affinities. He's normal to everything, has physical and magical. He has the same status immunities. That icon that's displayed there is poison. He is immune to poison, so we cannot inflict poison on him, but that was already true because Vanille does not know poison yet. This time he has 44,850 HP, which is more than the first stage, and, well, reinforces the fact that we kind of have to stagger him if we really want to do most effective damage dealing. Not for any reason other than we can drive the stagger chain, or the chain gauge up significantly so. I don't remember if I've pointed this out, but he has a chain resistance of 80, but after stagger, chain resistance drops to 0. So chaining will be more effective after stagger. So sometimes it's ideal to stagger and then continue chaining to really drive up the chain gauge. But in this case, since we only have one commando and we have 2 Ravagers that will continue to boost the chain gauge, it might be a little better to have Lightning revert to a commando after stagger. Notes: high damage dealing potential, something we don't know yet, capable of removing status ailments, and susceptible to deprotect. The message there, susceptible to deprotect, actually means that Vanille's going to prioritize casting deprotect. Whenever there's an intel like that specifies something important, that will actually clue in the AI to focus on these things. So saboteurs in general kind of cast random debuffs. There's actually a little bit of a priority chain. But when there is a notice about susceptibility, they will focus on that particular debuff, for better or worse. High damage dealing potential will also affect AI for a different role. It will affect the Sentinel role, but we don't have a Sentinel here, so we don't really care for what that means. And we don't know what that other note is. But in any case, the first course of action is to try to get this guy staggered. I'm going to follow a similar pattern as I followed in the previous fight. But this time I'm going to get faith on Vanille because she is a decent mage at least. All the debuffs are landed, so I might as well go back to the Tri-Disaster. I'm going to go and heal myself up at this point for reasons. That attack does a lot of damage, as you've seen. And due to a glitch, it can actually attack twice. And even with my HP where it is, it could kill. So it's actually good that we survived it, because we could have randomly died there. Steam Clean actually removed D-Shell, but this fight will end quickly. Our score is again over 30,000 because that was a two-part fight, and I believe that is the last two-part fight in the game, so that is the last time you'll see a score greater than 24,000. So maybe you will want to try to challenge yourselves to try to take on either the opening Manasvan Warmech fight, the Garuda Interceptor fight from Chapter 3, or the Dreadnought from this chapter, and get as high of a score as possible, just because that's the highest score within those three fights will be the highest score you can get in the entire game. He drops Omni-Kit and Lenora's Garage. Lenora's Garage is a shop. Omni-Kit is going to affect something. Crystarium Expanded. The Medic role is now available to Lightning. The Commando role is now available to Saz. We've seen these roles before, but now Saz has relearned, or I shouldn't say relearned, Saz has the Commando role, so now Saz, if he's in a party, has access to Commando. Lightning has Medic, but Medic is still not as effective as Potions.
Pulse is crawling with things like that, isn't it?
Got me. Not even the Corps has access to intel on Pulse. Soldiers in the field fight blind.
Yeah, I noticed that. But don't you need to know exactly what you're up against?
Target's a target.
You like to keep it simple, don't you?
I stick to my goal.
As long as you have a goal, you can fight?
You can stay alive.
Upgrading equipment. You can upgrade weapons and accessories at save stations using your Omni-Kit and the various components you collect on your journey. First, approach a save station and press X to access it. Then select Upgrade from the Save Station menu to access the workbench. After choosing Upgrade, select the weapon or accessory that you wish to improve. Next, you will need to select the type of component you wish to use for the upgrade as well as the quantity. The combined experience value of the chosen components will then be applied to the target piece of equipment. After enough experience has been spent on a weapon or accessory, its level will increase, improving its abilities and attributes. Certain components bestow a bonus to any experience spent on a piece of equipment. By utilizing these components, you'll be able to make more efficient upgrades. Likewise, some components reduce an item's experience bonus. Careful consideration is required when deciding which components to employ. Once a particular piece of equipment has reached its maximum potential, its level will be replaced by a star. At this point, no further level advancement is possible, but the weapon can be transformed into an entirely different one by means of specialized components. When this happens, both its name and properties will change. A newly transformed item may initially seem weaker than it did in its previous form, but unlike its fully upgraded predecessor, it will be eligible for level advancement. Through further upgrades, it can be made even more powerful than its earlier incarnation. Unwanted equipment can be scrapped for parts by selecting Dismantle. The equipment itself will be destroyed, but you will be able to salvage components, some of which can be obtained in no other way. There exist well over 100 different components. Obtain as many as possible and experiment with their effects in order to determine the most efficient and effective ways to customize your arsenal. It's weird because I actually misread the word efficient, but I actually read it as effective, which was the next word. So, we'll certainly talk about what that means in a moment. Upgrading equipment is here in case you need to read it again. Synthesized abilities appears here, which for some reason it appears here when it's actually been a thing throughout that I've not mentioned. And then there's the Dreadnought entry. So just to talk about passive abilities, since it's popped up. When Lightning has the Gladius and the Power Wristband. The Power Wristband by itself, and we can see it by itself in the inventory menu, the Power Wristband by itself bestows a Strength plus 20 effect. The Gladius gives 25 points of Strength and 13 points of Magic. But these two pieces of equipment combine together to give a special effect, which is seen here. It is called Physical Wall 5. Now, sometimes what that exactly means might not be too obvious, so we can read its effects by pressing square, and it says, negates the first 5 points of damage from physical attacks, which is really great in some situations. Actually, a terrible effect after a certain point in the game. It will be very handy in Chapter 7, but what this says is it negates the first 5 points of damage from physical attacks. Basically, whatever the physical damage would be, subtract 5 from it. So it does 5 fewer points of damage. That does sort of help early on. 5 is a significant number, especially when it reduces 5 for each individual physical attack. It means you'll have to heal less often. It is a very low number once HP starts ramping up in the mid-game. But that's not the only possible passive ability that can appear. We can actually experiment a bit, and it's very easy to experiment. Just take whatever weapon and hover over all the accessories, and you can actually see what possible passive abilities can spawn. In this case, on Hope, Airwing serves no purpose, but Ninurta, if we look on Hope, if we equip the Silver Bangle, the Ninurta will provide Hope with the Physical Wall 5 ability when coupled with the Silver Bangle. So the Ninurta, while it seemed like it didn't have much of an effect by itself, did provide a possibly powerful passive ability. You can also get the Physical Wall 5 with the Black Belt, and so not only will physical damage be reduced to 90%, but afterwards 5 points will be subtracted from it. That can make Hope survive attacks, physical attacks, a little more easily. Some other possible things. Are there any other possible things? I guess is the better question. Pro-Wing Staff doesn't lend itself to anything. We still have Physical Wall through the Binding Rod. The Blazefire Saber also provides Physical Wall. Denebdulers doesn't seem to provide anything special, nor do the Vega 42s. Actually, I wonder if the Magician's Mark would couple with the Denebdulers. Aha, it does. It provides Magic Wall, which you might guess negates the first 5 points of damage from magical attacks. And you can sometimes try to guess what combinations of weapons and accessories will provide these passive abilities. In this case, the Denebdulers is a more magic-based weapon, So perhaps magic-based accessories will provide a passive ability. It's actually fine to unequip the remaining accessories for various reasons, but put these equipments back to where they should be. I'm going to run forward to the next save point to discuss upgrades.
This looks like easy going.
I'm gonna scout ahead.
The first thing you want to do if you're going to start upgrading, save your game. The upgrade system in this game is frankly poorly explained. But you see that in the save menu or in this save thingamabobber, there's now a third option, upgrade. When you select upgrade, you can either upgrade or you can dismantle. We're going to start talking about upgrade first. You can upgrade weapons and you can upgrade accessories. If you've wondered what the level 1 next to every single piece of equipment means, it means that it's at its base stats, but their stats can be boosted through upgrading. So if we take the Blazefire Saber, we see the component list that we've been staring at throughout this game, and at this point we finally know what the primary purpose of these components are. It's for upgrading reasons. You can throw in various numbers of components into these weapons and accessories, and you can see when you select one that it will tell you how many experience points it will provide. You can also choose how many of each component to provide, and each successive one will additively increase the experience gained. Remember these icons to the left of each item? I called some of these organic ones. I called the ones with the bolts mechanical ones. There is a pattern here that can easily be seen in that organic components offer lower experience, but mechanical components offer significant experience. So it would seem that ideally you will just throw in a bunch of mechanical components because they give the most experience. I can throw in one passive detector and automatically level up the Blazefire Saber. But that's not actually ideal, because there's another trait that affects the experience gained, and that's called the bonus multiplier. There's currently no bonus multiplier, but if I start with, say, the Begrimed Claw, and I'm going to throw these in one at a time, it doesn't really matter if I do it one at a time or not, because it's going to add 6 points either way, but if I start with one, aha! With that 13th one, the Blazefire Saber now has experience bonus X 1.25. Future upgrades will receive a 25% experience bonus. So, if I now go to the passive detector, which previously was giving 300 points, it is now giving 375 points. Thanks to utilizing the organic components, I increased the bonus of the passive detector. If I now use one, it levels up, but we knew it was going to level up. But now it has bonus experience. It has 153 points into its level 2. However, we lost the 1.25 bonus. We're back to 1. What's happening is that the organic components, as you throw them into a weapon, they increase a value called bonus points. And once bonus points reaches a certain threshold, you get a bonus multiplier. We got 1.25, which is the first tier of bonus multiplier. And we can get back to that pretty quickly because we're pretty close to it. But there's actually more tiers than just this one. 1.25 is the lowest. And now at this point, because of rounding, Sturdy Bones will give more experience if I do them 2 at a time, or even 4 at a time. Because throwing in 1 gives me 23, throwing in 2 gives me 47, throwing in 4 gives me 95. Throwing in 4 takes me to the next tier, which is 1.5. So now, I believe 2 is fine there. I believe 2 is all you would really need to do to maximize the experience. The next tier is 1.75. The tier after that is X2. I'm just trying to get to the next tier. The final tier is X3. This is the highest tier. The max bonus you can get is X3. You can get triple experience. And you can get triple experience on these mechanical components. So now they are providing significant amounts of experience. They were already providing a significant value, but that significant value has been tripled, which is super significant. Now, the problem with what I had done previously was that I got to 1.25, and then I threw in a single mechanical component, which made me lose the bonus. So not only did I lose the triple effect, but I also lowered the bonus down to 1. Whereas the organics add to bonus points, the mechanicals subtract from bonus points. Meaning that the more you use mechanical components, the lower your bonus points go, and the worse the bonus gets. So, if I now throw in probably a single insulated cabling, or maybe several of these, we're now down to X2. We didn't cross X2 immediately, or cross to X2 immediately, but we did eventually go below the threshold for X3. So now we're at X2, and now these guys, instead of being tripled, are merely doubled. Now we can get back up to X3 by throwing in more organics. But really, the way that I'm going about this is very ineffective. After all, there's no reason to do these things one at a time. I could take this digital circuit, which is currently giving 402 experience. If I throw it in right now as is, I'm going to lose the X3. But if I throw in all 7 of these will get the X3 bonus. So instead of giving it 402, I throw in 7, I get 2,814. All 7 of these will get the X3 bonus, which will provide a significant boost to the level. I will lose bonus points, and I'm back down to X2, but I can throw in more organics to make up for it. So the way I'm doing it here, of doing 1 at a time, is a little more OCD than you should be, but if you really want to sort of optimize like organic usage, you would do it 1 at a time until you got to X3, and then throw in whatever mechanicals. So that is sort of how this works. You use organics to get up to X3. You throw in as many mechanicals as you can in order to exploit the X3 bonus. Now let's take a look at a certain different piece of equipment. Let's take a look at the Doctor's Code. This thing provides improved potions. You might wonder what happens if I level up the Doctor's Code. It doesn't have an easy stat attribute like these other ones. Leveling up these other ones would obviously increase the efficiency of their effects, but Doctor's Code improved potions, can you really improve upon improved potions? Can you have super improved potions? The answer is no. But say that I choose to try to get bonus points on this. Say I get to X to 1.5, or the 50% bonus, and then say I choose to throw in 5 paraffin oils, to try to get as many levels as I can on Doctor's Code. Normally you would want to get to X3, but I'm going to throw this in right now. I've maxed it out. It is now a maxed Doctor's Code, and its effect is still improved potions, for better or worse. So this didn't have any effect. Any apparent effect, rather. In fact, I didn't need to throw in all of those components. I, in fact, wasted all of these components because its max level is 2. All I needed was 200 experience points to max out the Doctor's Code. So this was a waste of components. This is one way that the upgrade system is sort of bad, in that it doesn't tell you what the max level is, it doesn't tell you how much experience to max out an accessory or equipment, and if you go over the max threshold, or if you go over the maximum experience, you still lose all of the components. So it is very easy to be very wasteful with your equipment, or with your components, by doing too many. Which is why I highly recommend doing research first and looking up certain values, like how much experience to max out a weapon, in order for you to not waste components like this. But maxing out the Doctor's Code is fine, because we can dismantle. If you dismantle something, you'll get something back. If I dismantle an iron bangle, for instance, this base level iron bangle, I will get a transformer. What is a transformer? It is a component. Generally, you will get components. This transformer is a mechanical component. It doesn't really do too much, though. It's actually a pretty terrible component. So it wasn't really worth dismantling that iron bangle, but we got something out of it. If I dismantle the Blazefire Saber that I worked so hard to build to 55 strength and 55 magic, I get 5 spark plugs. A measly 5 spark plugs. We did have 4, but we have 5 more now, but it, you know, we put in so much, and all we got were 5 spark plugs back. 99% of the time, dismantling is not that good, because you'll get back components unequal in value to what you put into it. And in fact, if you dismantle and sell the components, you make less than you would if you just sold the weapons straight up. Or accessory, for that matter. But there are very few exceptions where you actually want to dismantle for a better bargain. And one of these is, in fact, the Doctor's Code. This Doctor's Code that I foolishly upgraded to max level, in fact wasting resources on. If I dismantle it now, I get a Fortisol, an Aegisol, an Ether Soul, and an Elixir. Elixirs are very rare. In fact, there are only 4 possible elixirs to obtain in the entire game. We also got an Ether Soul, which we haven't seen yet. Ether Soul restores the party's TP, and we can pull that up from the Shroud menu, which we haven't utilized yet. Unlike the other Shrouds, it pulls up the TP, and it's also grayed out because I can't use it. I'm at max TP. If I wasn't at max TP, I could use an Ether Soul, and it would max out my TP. Unlike the other 3 Shrouds, Ether Souls cannot be obtained by monster drops. You cannot 0-star a fight and get an Ether Soul. Ether Souls can only be obtained by pickup. They can also be obtained by dismantles of a certain accessory, which we don't have yet and cannot obtain until Chapter 11. So Ether Souls are also very valuable and very limited in quantity. You want to be careful with when you use Ether Souls. Elixir, on the other hand, fully restores the party's HP and TP. Obviously, you can't use it here in the menu, so you can't restore your TP outside of fights, and you don't need to restore HP out of fights when your HP is restored in between battle. But in fights, You can throw an elixir just like you would throw a potion, and it will instantly restore your party's HP, and it will restore all TP. But as I said, there are only 4 elixirs in the entire game, so you want to, you know, not play around with these. You want to throw them in serious situations. I say that knowing full well that many people hoard their elixirs like they would in most games because, you know, you gotta save it for an emergency. And when you are in an emergency, you still won't throw it because you're in denial about being in an emergency. But I have been throwing potions, you know, very freely throughout the entire game because, for one, I had a lot of them. For 2, they are very easy to obtain. You can get them through the Unicorn Mart. They are 50 gil each. They are very cheap. I could even max out my potion stock right now without having done much in this game. So potions are easily replenishable, they are very cheap, and in the early game they have a strong effect. Elixirs are not easily obtainable. In order to obtain one, I had to dismantle a maxed doctor's code, which requires me to lose the doctor's code. And they are finitely obtainable. There's only 4 in the entire game. Its effect is very powerful, but should be used sparingly. So, one last thing to discuss. You know, we have these organic components. We have these mechanical components. Is it worth farming enemies to build up a stash of organics and mechanicals? And the answer is no. Generally, farming for components is a terrible idea. It is very inefficient. But how else could you possibly obtain these things? The answer is, there's a new shop called Lenora's Garage. If we open up Lenora's Garage, it sells polymer emulsion, ferroelectric film, insulated cabling, and paraffin oil. Let me also go ahead and read its description. Scrap parts. You name them, we got them. New manuals not included. With bargains like these, shops IRL are no match for Lenora's. Anyway, these sell mechanical components. They are expensive. They cost hundreds of gil. I can't really get too many. I can only get 18 polymer emulsions. But you can purchase these components. Now, I said it's not really effective to farm components. Actually, at this point in the game, it's better to just farm certain enemies for their drops and use the mechanical components they drop directly, but you don't want to do that. It is very ineffective, waste of time relative to the possible money you can get later on in the game, plus you don't have a need to. But if you were to buy one of these 4 components, you should ask yourself, which of these is the best to get? Which of these provides the biggest bang for my buck? Which of these provides the most the most experience per unit of gil? In this case, the answer is polymer emulsion. If you're going to buy one of these 4, purchase polymer emulsions. They give the most experience per gil. The other 3 are less effective and less efficient. How do we buy organic components? We cannot right now. We do not have the shop that sells organic components. So you cannot purchase those. As a result, organic components currently are a valuable resource that we want to use only on special pieces of equipment that we want to upgrade. So, remember when I started this all off by saving my game? I made this save data right here. That's because I don't want to use what I just did. That was a terrible use of resources. Instead, I'm going to quit and load to save. And of course, by loading the save, you get back all the components that you previously had misused. This is sort of save scumming, but at the same time, this system is pretty esoteric. I have my Blaze Fire Saber back. I have all of my organic components back. So that's why every time you're going to upgrade, I would highly recommend saving your game first, seeing how to get to X3, for instance, seeing whether you can max out something with the mechanical components you have. When you lose the X3 bonus, get it back by throwing in more organics, and then go back to throwing in the mechanical ones in mass. Now, in the end game, once we have all the shops that are available and we can purchase anything that's possibly available through a shop, there are certain combinations of organic and mechanical components that you can use in order to max out a weapon with the least amount of gil. And those utilize certain organics that are most effective, followed by certain mechanical components that are most effective. We don't have access to those yet. Again, polymer emulsion is the best one that we have access to right now, but it gets eclipsed in Chapter 7 by a different component. Then that one gets eclipsed in Chapter 9 by a different one. And then in Chapter 11, a better one comes out. And then through side questing, we can get access to an even better component. So it's sometimes better to wait until endgame to upgrade things, but at the same time, you can get massive value through early upgrades. If you want to see what would be a powerful upgrade early on, come watch the second part of this Chapter 4 video.